Hi friends, I'm Sherin Mathews. I'm a storyteller and I own an amazing company where we train kids and adults on the art of storytelling. I also do corporate storytelling. So for all the people who've asked me how that happens and where that happens, once these 40 stories of the Lent are over, I'll definitely put on a video where I'm doing a corporate storytelling. Okay, so you'd know just how that happens. Okay, before I begin today's story, I got a call from somebody. He has a boring story and he wants to turn this boring story into a very interesting one. And he wanted my advice on that. So if there are more people who have offhand stories where you've got it from somewhere and you want to use it somewhere and want to make it very interesting, then my advice as an expert would be, do not use that story. Storytelling is a very serious profession. We have to be committed to our soul. Every time we are telling a story, we are inevitably giving a part of ourselves away to the audience. And you have to be really conscious of what is it that you want to give away. So you have to do a little work, read a lot of stories, listen to a lot of stories, watch a lot of stories, read a lot of storybooks, and then when you come to a story which really does something here and really moves you and transforms you in a certain way, then tell that story. Because when you tell that story, the kind of effect that you would have with that storytelling would be amazing, would be amazing. It's like a high, once you have done that, you're on a drug high for many days. So it's an amazing profession, isn't it? So we are doing stories now of repentance and love and the power of prayers and transformation. So here is a story which moved me to tears. It's a beautiful story of a transformation of a teacher, which I think every educator, teacher, trainer should listen to and implement it in their lives. So this is a story of an elementary school teacher, Mrs. Thompson. The first day in her class of 5th grade, she goes and stands in front of the class and tells them a lie. She says, "I love you all the same." That was not possible because there was a kid called Teddy who was sitting right in the front bench, slumped down. She had been observing him since last year and had realized that he doesn't mix and play with children. He seems lost and he had bushy hair and smelly clothes. It looked like he was always in constant need of a bath, and it got to a point for Mrs. Thompson where it felt impossible to be with him because he was so unpleasant. Also, it got on to a point where she started taking delight in taking out her red markers and giving him big, bold, fat crosses on his paper and writing a big F on top of all his papers. And then, as the rules would have it, this elementary school needed all the teachers to review past records of all the students. So she had to read the past records of all the students. She kept Teddy's records off. So finally she had to read him. And when she read it, she was in for a surprise. The first grade teacher of Teddy had written, "Teddy is exceptionally brilliant and smart. He loves to play. He mingles with everybody. His work is very neat. He has a ready smile on his face always, and he's a joy to be around." The second grade teacher had written, "Teddy does his best. All the kids love him. But he might be a little troubled because of the grave disease that his mother is suffering from." The third grade teacher had written, "The death of his mother has affected him gravely. The father is not paying attention. And if the situation at home is not taken care of or immediate steps of intervention are not done, then it might affect his academics and emotional status." The fourth grade teacher had written, Teddy is withdrawn. He is lost. He looks unfed and untaken care of. He sleeps in the class. After reading this, Mrs. Thompson felt ashamed of herself. And it got even worse when for Christmas children brought beautiful gifts wrapped in lovely, beautiful colors and different ribbons. Whereas Teddy bought her a small gift wrapped up in what looked like the remains of a paper bag from a grocery shop, a brown, small, crumpled paper, and something was wrapped inside it. So she took that out and opened it. And what she saw was an old bracelet from which a few rhinestones had fallen off, and a bottle in which there was 1/4 of perfume left. All the children started laughing, but she stifled their laughter by wearing that immediately and telling everybody how pretty it was. And she tapped on little perfume on her wrist. That day, Teddy stayed for a little longer after all the kids had gone home. He came to Mrs. Thompson and said, Mrs. Thompson, today you smell just like my mom. After Teddy left, Mrs. Thompson sat there on a chair and cried for an hour. And from that day, she stopped teaching arithmetic or science or English. She started teaching children. The more she encouraged Teddy that year, the better he responded. And by the end of the year, he was one of the smartest kids in the class. When, on the last day, Teddy wrote a small letter to her on a small piece of paper, which read, Mrs. Thompson, you're my favorite teacher, and you're the best teacher in the world. Mrs. Thompson was moved. The next year, she received another piece of paper under her door, which read, Mrs. Thompson, you're still my favorite teacher, and you're the best teacher in the world. After 4 years, she received a mail, which read, Mrs. Thompson, I have passed out of school. I'm trying to pursue my college, and I must tell you and I must assure you that you're still my favorite teacher and you're the best teacher in the world. The next spring, she received another letter, which read, Mrs. Thompson, I try to take my education further, and I must tell you, you're my favorite teacher and you're the best teacher in the world. His name had become longer. It was no longer Teddy. It read Theodore F. Strout, MD. After a year, she got another letter. It read, Mrs. Thompson, I met this girl and I intend to marry her. My father passed away a few years back. Would you consider sitting at the place in the church where the mother of the bridegroom is supposed to? Of course, Mrs. Thompson agreed. And she took special care to wear that bracelet with a few rhinestones fallen off and dab the same perfume. After the wedding was over, Teddy came to her, he gave her a hug and whispered into her ears, Mrs. Thompson, thank you so much. You're still my favorite teacher and you're the best teacher in the world. And today, you smell just like my mom. Mrs. Thompson had tears in her eyes. She whispered back, you've got it all wrong, Teddy. It is you who taught me how to make a difference. I did not know how to teach until I met you.